DNA, say welcome, welcome, welcome to this particular chat. We want to talk to you about all things related to your money. And I'm so excited to be kicking this off with my good buddy Andy here. We've been talking about this, Andy, for a little while now, and it's kind of
Right?
surreal, but here it is. We're doing it.
I know, right? It has been a very long time coming, and we won't talk about version one. This is the new improved version that we're going to run with. But yes, we've been talking about it a long time. Known Dale for a couple years now, and we've hit it off from the very beginning. And we've always been looking for kind of this. What is it that we can chat about and just go back and forth, learn from each other, and hopefully share some good information out in the world. And landed on this, and it's going to be an absolute blast. So let's start off here. We're gonna try to keep to a similar format on all of our podcasts. We're gonna see how this goes. So we're gonna have kind of a main theme, and then we're gonna answer three questions, and we're gonna do our best, kind of PTI style, to kind of keep things to a time frame here. So we'll see how well this goes. So we're gonna start with number one here. We'll switch off. I'll ask Dale, then Dale can ask me. So we're gonna try to do this on a timer here. So, Mr. Yem, tell us a little bit about yourself. What brings you here?
Well, thank you for asking. Yes, I'm Dale. I'm born and bred here in Toronto, Canada. I come from a very meandering background, but basically, the last couple of years, I've been really worried about people having better conversations with themselves, with other people, with mentors, with teachers, with their kids. I came at this because I myself found that I was lacking in having really good conversations, or I was deferring a lot of important conversations about myself, about what mattered to me, and I really wanted to help people out, but I was always just too afraid to ask or ill-equipped to ask. And now I don't want to do that any longer. I don't want that to be my swan song. I want to make sure that I have the best conversations that I could possibly have. I don't want to regret not chatting and not being held accountable and not holding people accountable,
Right.
because that sometimes is the greatest form of love and service that we could do is just have
Mm.
conversations and
Love it.
hold people to account. And in this particular case, I wanted to talk about money. I came from a restaurant business. We were running my family's restaurant for over 12 years.
Mhm.
Before that, I was unknowingly in another type of entrepreneurial endeavor. I was running an acting business. I,
Mm.
I myself was the commodity that I was shamelessly, um, I would say another P word, but promoting, and I came to realize that a business and money is not the root of all evil. It's not all money. It's not all evil and
Right.
terrible, and it's not just a decrepit system. And more importantly, that the story that I have woven for myself or understood and taken for granted for myself for money was not the written predestined story for the rest of my life. That we could
Okay.
change the course of our lives, and I wanted to make sure that I had that conversation, continue that conversation with myself,
Mhm.
but also I really want to encourage that conversation with everybody else I can possibly meet.
All right.
Young and old, my age, your age, although we're very similar in age. I
Mhm.
think we need to talk more about money. Not enough people want to talk about their finances or about their relationship with money. There's a lot of shame and embarrassment and all these odd
Mm.
emotions that get in the way
Right.
and really cloud our thinking and our feelings and our decision making. Really, we
Mhm.
should have much more education, much more clearing of the noise.
Right.
And that's where you and I, kind of
Very good.
intersect and come in. I'm looking forward to unpacking some of that with you.
Yep. It's gonna be a blast.
It's
Absolutely.
going to be great.
It
Yeah.
will be. It will be. All right. Good job. In your 3 minutes, let's see if I can do the same thing here. So, um, my name is Andy Bennetts, and I have my background's in education. I was a teacher for a long time, and it's kind of a full circle moment. I mean, I won't go through all of the different things that I've done through the past, but getting back to the point where I feel like I'm educating. I feel like I'm working with people, trying to help them. That teacher heart never left me. So getting back to the point where I can have conversations that are meaningful, and I myself get to learn from an amazing mentor like Dale. And we just have a fun little banter back and forth. So, I mean, I think it's going to be so much fun that we get to share this journey together and talk about all things money. And to Dale's point, I think so often it's such a taboo subject for whatever reason. I think some of that is how you were raised. I'm sure at some point we'll talk about broke mindset and growth mindset and There's just so much psychology and different things that go into how you see money. Is it a tool? Is it evil? To Dale's point, um, again, we're not here to say one way is the right way or not, but it is going to be a lot of fun to kind of dig into um, all of that stuff. Hopefully, share some new information for you. I saw a stat a little while ago that only 1% of Americans, I'm not sure where the Canadians fall on this, but 1% of Americans consider themselves financially literate. So, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that is definitely a passion of mine is to help to increase that. And again, just back to that idea of being a teacher at heart and being able to share information that's going to matter and that's going to make an impact on people's lives for years to come, generational impact and that kind of stuff. So there we go. That's a little bit about me. How did I do?
Yeah, Andy, you did great, man. You talked a little bit about this, financial literacy stats. I think I read a recent stat where the percentage of the population, again, this is an American stat, went in terms of Americans that felt that they had some degree of financial literacy had
Mhm.
actually dropped in the last couple of years. There was a
Right.
stat done about 5 years ago, I
Okay.
think, and if the numbers
Hmm.
were right, and it was hovering at about 52% said yes, they would consider themselves financially
Mm.
literate.
Okay.
And now that number had dropped to like 48% or something. So
Okay.
the overall financial literacy, it would seem,
Mm.
either in sentiment or if it's actually true. And I guess
Sure.
some of it depends on how you define, how
Right.
literate people
Right.
might be. But that Americans themselves are finding that they're a little bit more out of touch with
Hmm.
their finances, about money and how the
Right.
whole thing works. I'm curious for you, Andy, when did you
Mm.
start feeling like you had to wonder about your level of financial literacy, or you started realizing you needed to learn more for yourself?
Um, oh.
Woo!
Excuse us, this is the first time we've used our little timer here, so we'll we'll get that we're ironed out by the second time around here.
That's fun.
I didn't realize it would play like that. So, sorry. Back to the question: when did I first realize that I needed to focus on financial literacy? Um,
Yeah.
I would say it was probably coming out of college. It was one of those things, and it's kind of an interesting. Again, maybe full circle is not the right analogy, but both my parents were very good with money. They were both accountants, so they knew numbers backwards and forwards. And I don't necessarily remember them kind of talking, with me about budgeting and that kind of stuff. So I kind of sowed my wild oats in college and racked up a credit card and different things like that. But coming out of college and then you know getting into the workforce and soon thereafter getting married, it's like, oh man, I really need to kind of know. Living on a teacher's salary, that's not like something that you can be careless with your money and you'll still have enough at the end of the month. So I realized very quickly how important it was to be mindful of my money and to make sure that we were gonna, be able to, have food at the end of the month. Honestly,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how about your peers, I guess? Did you find that you were the only person in a, sea of hundreds of people that were or were not talking about money, or do you think it
Yeah,
was sort of a slow realization for everybody in that time period?
I mean, if I'm honest, I really don't know because people don't like to talk about money, which is honestly kind of if we shift over here, like, why are we doing this? It's like,
Yeah.
it's okay to talk about money. It's okay to like to admit like, hey, I don't know what is a 401k? Like, what's the difference between a Roth and a traditional IRA? It's okay to not know these things and we can have these conversations. So, a direct answer to your question, Dale, is like, I really don't know. Maybe they were feeling the exact same thing, but because it was not something that they felt comfortable talking about, I felt like I was kind of going at it alone. Crystal, my wife, is great, and she was, always supportive of me, but I was always been the number guy. So outside of me reaching out to, a financial advisor or talking to my dad at the time, that I was kind of an alone thing. So maybe that's yet another reason of our list that I'm looking at here of the different reasons as to why we wanted to do this is to maybe offer another voice in that space. What do you think? What are some other reasons that you can think of, Dale, of why we wanted to start this little project here?
I think you're right on, Andy. I think it's it's obviously the question starting from ourselves of
Hmm.
realizing the need that we need to learn a lot more we had a lot of questions, and in my particular case, I my parents were not accountants. Even if they
Hmm.
were accountants, I don't know if I would have had the relationship with them to be able to freely ask
Mm.
lots of questions that they might
Right.
have considered to be dumb or something, or
Sure.
too basic. Um, I certainly don't feel like there are enough people out there who are putting out in a public forum or making themselves available to say, "Hey, ask me any stupid question."
Hmm.
And I mean, Google's come a long way now that we can start
Right.
asking stupid questions to Google, and
Sure.
maybe somebody out there will have made a website that will point us in the right direction or
Right.
something. But
Right.
I just want to make sure that at least to the best of our ability, that we're making ourselves available, that I'm making myself available, that we're making ourselves available to the people that we love, to people that we may not even know yet, and just say,
Right.
hey, no question's too dumb. And it's really, really important. No question is unimportant. In fact,
Hmm.
it's really important that you ask these questions,
Right.
that there is education, that we don't go on this premise of like, oh, it's going to work itself out somewhere, or I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
eventually be able to afford somebody to be able to guide me with this, or
Right.
I'll figure that out once I get my next bill paid or something like
Hmm.
that. And they
Right.
keep pushing these things indefinitely. No,
Sure.
don't push things.
Right.
Ask the questions now. Even if you're
Right.
just parking the question in the back of your head for today or tomorrow or
Right.
for the week, it's really important to keep those questions clear in mind, and to keep to value ourselves and our stories is important
Mm.
enough to seek the answers to those
Right.
questions and not just let them go and not just defer them, especially
Right.
when it comes to money. No.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you mentioned the idea of deferring, and I think that is it's and I'm looking at kind of the list of pain points that people might be feeling. Again, like why are we doing this? Who, and honestly, it kind of switches over to why are we doing this, but also who could possibly benefit from listening to two crazy guys talk about money, right? It's people that might be worried about money. Maybe they're not sure what their job looks like in the future. They're just stressed. They're overwhelmed. They maybe don't feel like they know really what to do on this kind of stuff, or maybe they've, um, just I don't even know what the right word is, ignored it, thinking it's going to get better. I think that it doesn't make sense, but it's one of those things like when it's a pain point, it's sometimes better to just ignore it and hope that it gets better or trust that it's going to get it better down the road. I don't know about you, Dale, but I think money is one of those things that like that's kind of the opposite, right? If you ignore taking care of your money and being mindful of that. Here we go. Oh, this is going to be fun, man. I think it's quite the opposite. It's not going to get better. It will probably get worse. So let's be a little bit more proactive, maybe, about this idea of money rather than just hoping that it works out for itself. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the not doing anything. I remember one of my university professors telling the class very clearly, you have to remember that doing nothing is always an option.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And when you're considering all your lists of choices and decisions, whenever you have choices, then you have to always start with that decision, that possibility of doing nothing, but realize that doing nothing also bears a cost. There is, it's just like any of the other options that you
Exactly
have to
right.
consider.
Yep.
And I think that's no, I mean, it's so much truer in the case of our finances, the case of money. We can just continue to neglect it. Life is going to go on for
Mm-hmm.
sure, but
Sure.
it moves a whole lot better when we are active with it, when we have a
Mhm.
plan, right?
Right.
Debt goes away a lot faster. We work through debt a lot quicker when we
Mhm.
are working through it with a plan. But
Right.
even just kind of haphazardly going about it,
Mm-hmm.
or as we're talking about, is more often the case when we just let it be and let things
Mm-hmm.
fester. Then it doesn't really things don't really work themselves
Right.
out in that
Right.
regard.
Right. No, I completely
Right?
agree.
Yeah, yeah. I I had another question, but it's all right. We'll get back to this. I'm really digging this. So what kind of things could people expect, and what who else could we who else do we think could really benefit from this? Annie, I just want to tell you a little bit about the people that I'm imagining. I come from as you know, an acting background, so I have a
Hmm.
whole bunch
Right.
of really really passionate, really talented artists and actors and designers and lots of my peers. they're gig workers before the gig economy was labeled the gig
Okay,
economy that
right.
it is right now. And for a lot of them, for a lot of us, it was feast or famine, right?
Hmm.
Like we called ourselves the starving artists, and everybody
Right,
labels us as like labels that path as a starving artist.
right, right,
In some ways, that labeling kind of pre writes for us or pre frames for us what we have to expect as far as
sure,
wealth and success and growth, and
right,
if we're going to be tackling with debt and poverty for the rest of our lives. And and it doesn't have to be that way.
right,
It's kind of unfortunate
sure.
that it is that way, but it is that way. There is a group of people out there. They're my peers. They're not that far removed, and they're
Hmm.
worrying about, like, I can't afford rent. I don't
Hmm.
want to have kids because I won't be able to afford
Right.
diapers.
Mm.
Forget about retirement. Like, that's what's retirement? That's a
Right.
word that never comes into the daily vocabulary or the
Hmm.
thought train through the course of, sunrise to sunset.
Right.
And some of us, like around now, especially in the beginning of the year, it'll be tax season, and that's when everybody's hair
Hmm.
just starts falling out and they kind of
Right.
drop off the face of the earth. They don't want to talk to anybody because they're afraid
Right.
that somebody's gonna rat them out and send them a bill or something.
Sure.
It's really, it pains my heart that
Mm-hmm.
something like money could have such a profound stressful effect
Right.
on on uh, on our lives. I mean, it's had a stressful effect on my life and my family's life
Mhm.
as well.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And I want
Right.
to see that it does not happen that way for the
No.
people we love.
No, I
Yeah.
completely agree. And I mean, back to just what, for all the folks that are listening, all of the dozens, hopefully hundreds, and soon to be watching and listening to this, what to expect is that, and I feel like you can hear that Dale and I's heart is we want to provide some hope. Like there is a hope for a better future. There is a hope to be debt free and not have to be working into your 70s and your 80s because you're trying to pay off your mortgage or something like that. So in doing that, there's lots of different ways we want to do that. We want to just shed some light. We want to give some tangible things that you can work on in various seasons of life, right? And we want you to build a better life and start believing and start dreaming. We had a really good conversation kind of leading up to this, is that if something that we say in one of these can help people to start dreaming again and start just allowing themselves to see a better future for them, then
Mhm.
I feel like we're going to be pretty happy with this. Whether we have 10 listeners or a million listeners, if people feel after they've listened to this and after they've shared this, that they see a better life for themselves and for their family, I feel like we're going to be pretty happy with that. What do you think, Dale?
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. Yeah. I mean, even if we could change just one or a
Hmm.
handful of people's trajectories for their futures, for the stories that they write for themselves,
Right.
as you say, for the level of hope. If we've somehow
Mhm.
notched a person's hope and possibility
Right.
before listening to these random dudes talking and after they've heard us random dudes talking, even
Right.
if it's just notch it up by 10%,
Sure.
and I think that it'll be worth our effort. It'd be great to see if our kids later on get to hear back and scroll through
There
and
you
say,
go.
"Hey, these guys actually, I should write this
Yeah.
down. This is really helpful." But
Right.
they may not listen to us anyways because they are
It,
kids, and that's kind of
yeah.
how it goes sometimes,
They'll
right?
be adults before we actually know what we're talking about, right? That's
Maybe,
how that
yeah.
works.
But somebody somewhere out there needs to hear somewhere that, like Andy says, it is possible to
Right.
rewrite the story of your financial future, to rewrite the narrative that you have for your
Right.
money. You just need to have clarity on that voice, on whose voice it is that you want to pay attention to,
Right.
all the other voices that you want to neglect,
Mm.
and then let the power of that voice, let the power of that story
Right.
percolate, change into the details and the minutiae of our lives and the
Yep.
steps that we make. Yeah.
Yep. Couldn't say it better myself. So, as we kind of wrap up this first episode, let me just give you kind of a taste of some different topics that we're going to be covering here in the near future. Budgeting. I'm just going to scroll through my list here. An emergency fund. Is it important? Dadgum, you silly thing.
I want to put a hat on every
I
time that comes
know,
up.
right? I
Got all the
promise we'll
hats
get this
here.
figured out. Don't even worry about it. All right, so building an emergency fund, is that important? How much is too much? That kind of stuff, right? Credit cards, are they the devil, or is it something that we can use? Is there something you can leverage to actually get that? Retirement, I'm so excited about that one just because Dale is a professional in that space and would love to hear all of the different aspects of that. Inflation, that's a thing. If you don't know what that means and how that affects us, we can talk about that. Tax planning, insurance, again, pros and cons, different things like that. Estate planning, financial education, kind of this whole thing. And I loved at the end of when we were
Mortgages. You didn't mention mortgages.
mortgages,
Yeah.
absolutely, mortgages
Buying a
for sure.
house.
And one that I just loved that Dale threw in here when we were kind of brainstorming back and forth is philanthropy. I think my guess is that a lot of the folks that are watching this that are friends of ours are yes, they want to be able to pay off their mortgage and different things like this, but a lot of times they want to do that for the good of other people, and we'll have that conversation as well. So, any other parting thoughts, Dale, before we kind of wrap up episode number one here?
No. I mean, if you this is the only episode you're ever gonna listen to, then I'd have to say, please ask
Mhm.
yourself questions. What is
Right.
my relationship with my money?
Hmm.
And how is it serving me right now? My understanding or my story of money?
Right.
And how can that change to serve myself and the people that I love in a better way? That would be,
That'd be great.
yeah.
I love it. And I will be a little bit more shameless pluggy and say, please share this with your friends and let's grow this little audience. And I know in the future we do want to have like a Q&A section. So those, like Dale said, those questions that you like I don't want to ask my financial advisor this, but it is something I'm wondering about. Google's given me all kinds of crazy answers. We would love to welcome those types of questions so we can address specific things that you guys are thinking about. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So thank you
And
again for your time, guys. Yeah, Dale, what's our give us
I,
our send off
I,
here?
I was about to say, I mean, if there's a question that is completely outside of our wheelhouse that we have absolutely no clue on,
Hmm.
then both of us have a network of lots of other
That's very
financial
true.
professionals, of people who we can draw on. We might even call them in if
Hmm.
this goes in
Yeah,
that direction.
right.
But no questions too big, no questions too small. Just if you have
Hmm.
anything, then feel free to send them our way.
Absolutely. And to Dale's point, we are envisioning down the road actually having guests come in specializing in this or that and just growing our knowledge together here. So thanks again for watching the Money DNA show, and we will see you next week. Thanks, guys. Take care.
God bless.